The iPhone 7 Plus was released alongside the iPhone 7 back in 2016, and this may just be the oldest smartphone that still works really well here in 2024. Now, if you don't know, the iPhone 7 Plus is actually a lot different from the regular iPhone 7, and we're going to go over the differences later in the video. So let's start off with the design of the iPhone 7 Plus. So if we look at the front, you'll see that we still have the home button, and this was actually removed about a year later on the iPhone 10. And we also have a 5.5-inch screen from one corner to the other, which makes this iPhone larger than many of the modern smartphones that we have right now. And if we look at the bottom, this was actually the first ever iPhone to remove the headphone jack. So if you wanted to plug in your wired headphones, you would have to get an adapter. And at the back, we have an aluminum shell, and we also have two cameras here. Now let's move on to the hardware of the iPhone 7 Plus. So the iPhone 7 Plus comes in three different storage models, which are 32, 64, and 128 gigabytes. And the one that I have here is 32. But for most of you, I would recommend getting either the 64 or 128 gigabyte models. So let's talk about the speeds of this iPhone. So both the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus have the A10 Fusion chip, which are really not that good when you compare it to the current iPhone 15 Pro, which has an A17 Pro chip. But if you look at the RAM, it's actually pretty good on the iPhone 7 Plus. So keep in mind that the iPhone 15 Pro has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the 7 Plus has 3 gigabytes. And this is actually one of the ways that the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus are different from each other, because the regular iPhone 7 has 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now that we've covered the speeds of this iPhone, let's now talk about the display. So this iPhone actually has a 401 pixels per inch display, and this is actually another way that the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus differ from each other, because the regular iPhone 7 has a 326 pixels per inch display. And because the iPhone 7 Plus has a huge display, the screen resolution is 1080 by 1920. Moving on to the camera of the iPhone 7 Plus, like I mentioned earlier, this device has two cameras on the back, which is actually an advantage over the iPhone 7. So we're going to be testing both of these cameras on both the photo and video, and we're also going to compare it to the iPhone 14 Pro. So if we go into the camera app, you'll see that we have the option for portrait mode, and this isn't a feature on the regular iPhone 7. So let's start off with the photo on this device. So here's what a photo looks like on the iPhone 7 Plus on the main camera. Overall, it's not that bad. And in case you're wondering, this is what a photo looks like on the 2x zoom camera. I'm not sure if the camera quality on the 2x zoom camera is any worse. Now for comparison, this is what a photo looks like on the iPhone 14 Pro, and it is a pretty big difference. It does look like the pixel density on the iPhone 14 Pro camera is a lot higher. So here's what video looks like on the iPhone 7 Plus, and let's try focusing on my phone so you can see the details. And even though the video quality isn't really that bad, it doesn't compare to the one on the iPhone 14 Pro. Now here's what video looks like on the iPhone 14 Pro just for comparison, and as you can tell, it is a huge difference from the iPhone 7 Plus. It does look like the lighting is a lot better on here, and the colors seem to be a lot more accurate. So overall, you can see that the camera on the iPhone 7 Plus isn't all that good. And if you're wondering about the specs on the camera, it's 7 megapixels on the front and 12 megapixels on the back. And the 12 megapixel camera quality is true for both the 1x and the 2x zoom cameras. As for the video quality, the rear camera can record at 4K 30, while the front camera can record at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now that we've covered the camera of the iPhone 7 Plus, let's now talk about the battery. So this device has a 1960 mAh battery for the regular iPhone 7, and the 7 Plus has a 2,900 mAh battery. And just for comparison, the iPhone 15 Pro has a 3,290 mAh battery. So what that means is that in terms of battery life, the iPhone 7 Plus does compare really well to modern smartphones. Now that we've covered the battery life, let's now talk about the software support. So the iPhone 7 Plus goes all the way up to iOS 15, which really isn't that good. This device still gets security updates, but it is lacking years of software support. Now that we've covered the specs of the iPhone 7 Plus, let's now talk about whether it's still worth buying and how much it costs. So first off, the price of the iPhone 7 Plus is actually not that expensive. On eBay, I found this one here that's just $65. I got mine for 80 bucks and it's fully unlocked. But like I mentioned earlier, the 32GB model isn't going to get you enough storage. Now, if you want to get a smaller phone, I recommend that you go for the iPhone 8 or the iPhone SE2. So the iPhone 8 would cost you about 60 bucks, while the iPhone SE2 would cost you 100. And if you're willing to spend up to 200 bucks, then I would recommend that you go for the iPhone 12 mini or the iPhone SE3. Now, if you don't really care about the software support or the camera quality, I would recommend that you go for the iPhone 7 Plus because it does still run really fast, and the battery life as well as the display is still really good on the iPhone 7 Plus. So that's basically all there is for this video. I hope you all enjoyed this, and if you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out my channel to see more videos like this in the future.